next day, we move on to a very prominent landmark in northeast Wyoming. It is called the Devil's Tower. In early days, fur traders and early settlers gathered there. The Plains Indians also used this area where they worshipped at this awe-inspiring natural formation.
You may recognize this tower from a 1970 movie, which was a story about an alien spaceship landing on it. It was called Close Encounter of the Third Kind.
Nowadays, Devil's Tower is very popular as a rock climbing wall among a lot of the climbers. There's no final answer as to how the tower was formed, but geologists do agree on two major points. The most popular theory suggests that Devil's Tower was a volcanic plug or was formed within the neck of an extinct volcano. On the next day of our tour was to the massive monument to Crazy Horse. Crazy Horse was the chief of the Lakota Indians, and he was there at the killing of General Custer. And we were blown away by this monument. It's a massive sort of thing that you can't imagine unless you see it.
They first started with this monument back in 1946, and that was 72 years ago. The United States government offered the family money for the building of this monument, but the family turned it down because they thought maybe they would be obligated to do what the government said and the way they wanted. And they didn't want to do that, so they decided to go ahead and do it with private funding.
Our next view is of the model of the finished monument as it will look in a number of years down the road. In the finished version, you will see on the mountain behind where it has been drawn out in diagram form. In the visitor center, we see a teepee, which is made out of the bison skins rather than what you might have thought of as canvas. There are also Indian artifacts of various kinds in this visitor center. This little fur wall hanging made by the Indians can be purchased for $1,500. If you'd rather, you can have this little doll for a bit less. Now we have followed the Yellowstone River into the park. And as you see, it's a very deep canyon that has been formed over a number of years. Stop. At the bottom of the canyon, we see a very small strip that it is the Yellowstone River. And as we follow it through, it gets larger and larger until we find something very spectacular. The beautiful Yellowstone Falls, which is an extremely tall falls. And there it is in all its glory. After spending some time admiring the falls, we continue to follow the Yellowstone Canyon into its gorge. And we take a look at, as we go on down and look in the distance at something very interesting, which we will study up close in a few minutes. Here is the item that we saw in the distance, and it looks as if there's something strange. fence posts all standing on end. Well, actually, they are not fence posts. They are rock, which has formed over the years coming from volcanic rock.
From the canyon, we moved on to the hot springs, which you see over here. This is bubbling water, boiling, cascading down the rocks, as it is. You see it there. And coming up over here now, there's something very, very interesting right here in the foreground. You're going to see what it is up close and personal in just about a second or so. There it is, standing there in its glory. And it is the Liberty Cap, a dormant hot spring cone. And this is another view of the water cascading down the rocks, bubbling hot water. You don't want to go by it and take a bath. It's too hot. Of course, at this altitude, water doesn't boil at 212. It boils at 190. But you know what? 190 is still much too hot to be in. We're now in a part of the park where there's all kinds of geysers, which is right next to where Old Faithful is. And some of these geysers are much more dramatic when they erupt than what Old Faithful is. But Old Faithful erupts every 90 minutes, and these guys, you never know when they go off. Some will erupt once a day, and some may not erupt for once a week. You never know when they're going to go off. But Old Faithful is always on time. 90 minutes plus or minus 5 minutes. Now Pat is going to be coming up here where she's standing right in front of this gushing geyser here with all the steam coming up.
This is very spectacular eruption that everyone got so excited over, and it lasted on and on and on. And the following in this is right adjacent to that spectacular eruption, and you see the minerals here again, another instant.
And this water pouring down the slope over here, which you see into this river here, and this river, no matter how cold the winter gets, will never freeze because that hot water keeps it from freezing.
These pools of deep blue water are steaming hot as you see them bubbling away like a pot on a stove. And when they boil over, you will see the minerals flowing down. The coloration of these minerals is bright and intense as it flows on down into the waterway. We are now at the lodge where we are at the site of Old Faithful itself, just outside the lodge. And here we see the Old Faithful starting, showing signs of erupting, and people are starting to gather.
Now you know if Old Faithful goes off every 90 minutes, and it's just about time. And here it goes. There she goes, full blast.
That's even more beautiful. Beautifuler. That's it. You're getting it. In motion? Yeah. Wow. That is spectacular. That's a great show. Wow.
How's he looking? I can't really make it out from here.
How's it looking?
Yeah.
Very good. It's diminishing now. It's pipe settling down. It's diminishing. Keep rolling. You can always cut it when you get home.
Oh, no, I know that.
It's still rolling. Those are beautiful spurts. That's a long one, isn't it?
Well, I don't know how long they are, really.
Well, I don't really. This is only my second or third.
been going for 3 minutes. And as she stopped now, she's going to sleep. And that will be sleeping for the next 90 minutes before it starts doing its thing all over again. This lodge at Yellowstone is really quite unique. First, I'm going to show you some of the outside to just so you get an idea of what it's like. And then I'm going to bring you inside, and that's where the surprise happens. This is the lobby, and this is what's called timber frame construction. This lobby goes up 3 stories, and it's really quite unique. You see, the pillars that hold the thing up are tree trunks. And then they also cut tree trunks and go crosswise on this to tie everything together. Then they get branches and use them as decoration. Also, it gives added support to the structure. You have to admit, this is really quite unique, and it really makes quite a view. Especially this lobby goes up 3 stories high. This is the 3rd floor, way up high. This is not open to the public. This is strictly for the maintenance people. On the way to our next destination, we stopped off for a little break over here at the Yellowstone Hotel, which is really quite a beautiful place. Pat naturally pulled up a rocking chair, and she sat down and enjoyed herself. Now, the inside, you'll see as we go along here, the inside of this place is really quite lavish and very, very fancy. They stay here very, very long, just enough to take a little break and have something to drink if we want, which naturally we did. We had enough time to grab a drink at the bar and enjoy the scenery a little bit. Now, this is really fancy, and this thing is right on the edge of the Yellowstone Lake.
Our next stop as we moved along is going toward the south entrance, where we headed toward the Grand Teton Mountains. We could barely see the mountains in the distance from the beautiful Jackson Hole country. The reason being that the smoke from the California and Oregon fires nearly obliterated the mountains themselves.
From a closer viewpoint, this is what we got to see. Barely see the mountains. But you know what? With a little computer magic and a little enhancement, and we changed that from this to this. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than what it was.
The next tour of the day was our float trip down the Snake River, where on occasion we could see other views of the Grand Tetons.
Look out, Pat. Don't let this guy hit you in the head with the oar.
If he did, you'd know it all right. As we move along, we see more views of these gorgeous Teton Mountains.
Without the computer magic that I was able to do with my Adobe program, none of these pictures of these mountains would have been possible. Our grandchildren is not as good as they could have been, but we have to be happy with what I got. There was 10 of us sitting on this raft, and which made it full. And then we enjoyed the scenery as we went by. And at times we had to hang on a little bit because the rapids got a little bit rough, but we went through there fine.
The rest of the day was filled with a very long, uneventful trip to Salt Lake City, where we had to catch our plane the next day for home. And so we'll say goodbye. Here we are on our first day of our Panama tour. It is a very hot and sticky day, and we are enjoying the morning at the old ruins of early Panama built in the early 1600s, after the destruction of the original Panama, which destroyed by the Caribbean pirates who were after the Aztec gold. According to carbon dating on pottery shards, Panama has been home to indigenous tribes since 2500 BC. The Spanish explorer Rodrigo de Bastidas was the first European to set foot on the isthmus, followed a year later in 1502 by Christopher Columbus on his fourth and final voyage. Columbus called Panama the solid land, quote unquote. In 1510, the first European settlement on American mainland, Santa Maria la Antigua de Darien, was founded on the Caribbean coast with the explorer Vasco de Balboa as mayor. In 1513, Balboa, hearing stories that Panama had another coast, crossed the isthmus, and he was the first European to gaze upon the Pacific Ocean, and immediately he claimed it for Spain. Balboa initially called the ocean the South Sea, which was later changed to the Pacific. Recognizing the strategic importance of having a settlement on the Pacific, King Ferdinand I of Spain gave the order to move the Caribbean city to the Pacific.
And this is what modern-day Panama looks like. High-rises everywhere. We're now at the new locks, which was finished about a year or so ago. And now you see these things are much wider than the old ones, deeper and longer. They'll be able to fit just about any size ship made today. And you'll see as we're going along here that there's a ship that's already gone through. This water level on the second lock is down. Now he's going across there and he's going to be lowered down into the third lock, and which will be at the Pacific Ocean level, and you'll be sailing away. The doors on these new locks operate differently. Instead of hinging open like the old one did, these here retract into that building there crosswise, and it takes them close to 5 minutes to fully open. And there's another ship sitting outside here waiting to come in. We'll show you that in a second. The lock is now all ready to accept this guy. As you can see, this is a big, huge tanker. And you'll see that once he gets in the new lock, there's plenty of room for him. Unlike the old locks, they don't use mules to guide the boats in. They use tugboats here. The ship is actually operating under its own power. The tugboats just guide him into the position to where he's got to go. One big difference between these locks and the old ones is, the old ones, when they lowered the water, they used to dump the water. On these here, they don't. They pump the water into that holding tank that you see in the background there, and recycle it, and they reuse the water to fill it back up. In this way, they're not wasting water, because they found that if they didn't do that with all the new locks and everything else, they would eventually be draining the lake. That big tanker is now in a lock over here. The gate is closed and the water is going to start to go down. As you can see, this is a big ship, and which could not fit in the old locks, but you can see how much room he has here. So they can build ships much bigger than what this is, and still be able to handle them in the far future. We've now moved over to the old locks, and you can see how much difference they are. You see these gates over here? They swing open like a door hinge, and the new ones just slide across. And these are considerably smaller than what the new ones are. And if I'll pan out over here, and you can see where the water is down low in this particular lock, because once the boat goes through here and it goes out, he's at the Pacific Ocean level to go out. So it's really quite an operation. It is really worthwhile seeing. And you know what? Tomorrow we're going to be going through these locks on a party boat, which you shall see very shortly. And there it is, the party boat that we're going to be on tomorrow. Now, Caravan runs tours daily, and the tour before us is on this boat. And tomorrow we're going to replace them and we're going to be there. It's really quite an operation that they do here. It's very enjoyable and we really enjoyed it a lot. We're now getting ready to go into the lock, and we're going to sail right by this guy. This is an automobile carrier. They understand that this carries, there's about 4,700 vehicles on board, between cars, vans, pickups, and small trucks that's going to be delivered to wherever it's going. We moved into the locks and we're going up to the front. And there's two boats ahead of us. One's a sailboat and one's a cabin cruiser. And we're all going to line up there and then we'll wait for the big car carrier to come in. Now, I understand for a boat our size, it costs $5,000 to go through these locks, which is a pretty good price, kind of expensive. Well, it was really worth it because of our experience we had of doing through the locks here. And when we get all the way through and everything is down and the gates will open, and one by one we're going to be leaving. Okay, the water is all out and the gates are starting to swing open. It's a slow process. Nothing is fast on these locks. Now, once they're open. Now that they're open, the sailboat and the cruiser has left, and we're going to follow them right out and going out. You'll see in a second, we're going on our way out. There we go. We're now leaving. And that cabin, the big car carrier is going to follow us right out, which you'll see that in a second. And there he is. He's now inching out. And you can see with as big as what this thing is, he still just about fits in the old locks. So this was why they have to build new ones, because they got bigger and bigger ships. We're now at our next stop, the beautiful Gamboa Resort. It is in the middle of the rainforest. That means in the middle of the jungle. But then we're going to be spending 2 full days here. This place has a beautiful lobby. I'll show you a few shots of it. It is really quite elegant. And the view out of this window of the pool and the palm trees is absolutely breathtaking.
The 2 days that we were here, we were invited to stroll the gardens and swim in the pool. And what a delightful experience in the middle of the jungle. You look out and see alongside the Chagres River, which we have been following pretty generally from Panama City.
The pool is very inviting, and you can sit in here for a while, relax and swim, do whatever you would like to do. And if you like to have a nice drink while you're at the pool, you can sit over here. We see coming up the bar. The bar has stools in the water, so you can sit in the water and have your drink. What could possibly be nicer than that? And then look over here, you would see there's a waterfall coming down from up above. And the whole thing is just very delightful. It is a beautiful place to spend a couple of days. And we're going to be spending New Year's Eve here tonight. What could be better?
And what can possibly be more delightful than a hammock, your own hammock on your own balcony?
All right. Are you enjoying yourself?
Sort of. Except I can get much more comfortable. Yeah.
Go ahead. Get yourself as comfortable as you want to get.
I should take my shoes off.
No, leave them on.
I don't have the energy to do it right now. Oh.
Boy, is that the ultimate of lazy or what?
Hi. Hello.
You know, Pat, it's not, you're not going to hog this thing all to yourself. Now it's my turn, so let's move out and let me get in there and enjoy it too, okay? You know, I told you this place was in the middle of the jungle. Well, this long shot, it gives you an idea of just how overgrown the surrounding area is. After a great New Year's Eve party, it is now the morning after, and we're up nice and early because the hotel also has a nice marina by here, and they're going to take us out today, out to Monkey Island, to where we're going to see monkeys of all kinds. Okay, we're off, and these boats are capable of reaching speeds of 45 miles per hour, and that is moving. Hey Pat, are you having fun yet?
It looks like it. Speeding along at 45 miles per hour with my hand out getting wet with the spray, you can't beat it.
We're now coming up on Monkey Island, and we're going to be going in nice and close to shore. And here we are tucked in, and if you look closely, you can just about see one monkey hiding in the leaves there.
Oh look, this monkey has jumped up on the top of the boat, on the roof, and he's down very quickly, getting ready for his first meal of grapes. We brought grapes for him, and he can hardly wait. And right away quick, he's up on his tree limb, perching and looking down at us. You can see very well that he is a capuchin monkey with his white face and his white chest.
There he is up in his perch there, busily chopping away at his grapes. He knows where the good food is, that's why he came over to us. And he's totally ignoring us now. We're now changing position to another spot, and we come across this beautiful white egret looking around for his favorite food, snails.
From that location, we went on to another monkey island located in Gatun Lake, where we find the tamarin monkeys. They look very different from the capuchin monkeys. They do not have the white face and chest, and they are very much wilder. They did not stay around for long. They grabbed their bananas and off they went. We had to be careful not to laugh out loud and make a lot of noise because these monkeys would consider this as a threatening call to them and would respond appropriately.
From Monkey Island, we went back to the hotel where we had lunch, and then we got on another boat, which you see here, and went up the river further to the Indian village. We arrived at the island, and we got off in the boat, and we started walking up to where we got to listen to this musical interlude they were playing for us. It was really quite different. If you call this music, that's fine. And then when we went inside the big hut over here, we first got all kinds of briefings of their customs and all that stuff. And then these ladies came in and started dancing around for us.
These women of the Embera tribe are indigenous to this area in central Panama, and take a good look at their beautiful, colorful clothing, which they wear for tourists. But when they're alone, they don't bother with clothing. The Embera handicrafts are quite exotic, and you see what is beautifully carved from the tagua nuts and the wood from the cocobolo tree. You will also find woven palm fiber baskets.
You'll notice that these huts are all all built with the floor about 3 to 5 feet above the ground. The reason for that is crocodiles that roam around here at night. And this is how the children are dressed, very scantily. Down in this section, the Indians do what they call body painting. It's not a, it takes the place of a tattoo, but it isn't because it will wash off. But after maybe 5, 6 weeks, it won't come off right away. But at least it's not permanent. So you're really not taking too many chances by having this done. And this is what it looks like when it's finished. It's really quite pretty. The next day we moved on to our next location, and we visited a couple of nice interesting places along the way there. The first place was the orchid garden, where they had all kinds of beautiful orchids, as you can see here. One is different from the other, and I really don't know which one was nicer than the other one because they were all my favorites. I could not pick one as being better than the rest.
On our next trip, we find ourselves in a conservatory for the preservation of three-toed sloths. And you see the sloth hanging from a branch, and then you see a group of sloths grooming each other. And they're very loving as they groom.
I don't know about that, if they're just grooming each other or if they're trying to make out and make some love. How do you interpret it?
Well, I don't know. It's hard to say. And oh my goodness, look at this, where we see the sloth being fed a camellia blossom. And see how he loves it. He's just eating it up, upside down. And here's a still of him. And these three-toed sloths will hang all their lives upside down. They will not come down to eat. Watching this sloth moving along, it reminds me of the fact that baby sloths are in deep danger if they fall from their perch up in the tree. If they fall to the ground, the parent will not go down to get them and rescue them. They are on their own. They've got to get themselves back up in the tree or they perish from wild animals. This next view is of the caretaker cradling an anteater upside down. He loves to have his tummy rubbed.
Now we're in an area where they have frogs. Now you have no idea how small these frogs are. They're about the size of your thumbnail. They were so small that I could see them with my naked eye, but when I tried to find them in the LED screen of my camera, it was very difficult, and I missed a lot of it that I could do. But I did the best I could do, and I at least got a couple of them on screen. Hi, Pat.
Well, hi.
Unfortunately, all good things come to an end sooner or later.
Well, they do, and we had a wonderful experience in Panama City.
Yes, and I can't think of a better place to say goodbye than here in front of this beautiful, gorgeous hotel.
I agree with you. And of all the trips that we took with Caravan, this has been the most varied of all the experiences that we had.
Yes, it has.
I made a list of the things that we really were impressed by. And we will...
Okay. Tell me a bit. What's some of the things you were impressed by?
Well, we started out with the ancient ruins of Panama, which are located right in the urban area of Old Panama.
Yes. You know, back hundreds and hundreds of years ago, maybe around the 1200s, the Spaniards came here looking for gold.
That was an
Yeah.
interesting, very interesting and rich
It was
experience.
further up on the land that goes up in Central America. There was a lot of gold, and they thought maybe even down here there was. But they found out, to their surprise, in a short period of time, after building a little community, that this was nothing more than a hot, steaming swamp,
Near the equator.
riddled with disease.
Yes.
And they didn't spend much time here, and they left. But they left us with all these ruins that we enjoyed seeing.
And we would progress on to the new locks that you've heard about.
Yes, there was really something. I never really realized how big they were until that big, huge tanker pulled into the new lock.
Right behind us.
No, not that one.
Not that one.
No. The tanker pulled in, and I saw he didn't look so big inside the lock.
Oh, that's true. Yes, we were looking down on
And
it. Yes.
the whole process is so much better that they don't waste the water anymore. They save it and reuse it because it's otherwise this lake could be drained in a period of time if they don't save the water.
That's true. So we, the next day, we went into a party boat and
Yes, we
Had
went
that
to find-
experience.
and went into the old locks.
we had the experience of what it's like in a very small boat in the small locks behind the big boats.
And it was really something. And we enjoyed that very, very much. Puts a whole different perspective on the whole thing of the locks, being in there with other boats and watching the water go down and that. You said, you and I both went through these locks in previous times, but we went through on cruise ships.
That's true.
And this
Yeah.
is a whole different experience.
In a
small boat.
Small party boat, true. We had the experience also the following days of going on a party boat up the river to the Monkey Islands and to the indigenous Indian reservations.
Yeah, the reservation.
Mhm.
And one of the few Indian reservations left. But with Monkey Island, that was really something. We went out there to the island, slowed down, pulled in, and you know what? The monkeys were waiting for us.
Were they ever?
This is a daily ritual for them. They know where the food is, and they know where to go to get it.
And they couldn't wait to get their bananas and what do you guess the other? Grapes.
Yes. I didn't know the monkeys ate that kind of fruit. I thought they ate bananas.
Well, we found out they ate other things too.
Yes.
It was very interesting. Then we went on to the
Indian villages.
village.
And it's hard to believe that in this day and age, people still live in this culture that they lived back in ancient times.
They tried to keep their ancient culture, do their ancient carvings of beautifully polished and finished statuettes and different items of nature.
Yes, and the ladies and the men came out in their fancy skirts and stuff, which they wore for us. Because normally under normal conditions, they don't. They go around naked.
Well, that's something new that we're not used to, so they thought they'd better present themselves with some clothing on.
Yes.
Well, then we had a very delightful trip on the following day to the sloth conservation.
Yes, in case you don't know what a sloth is, it's a funny animal that hangs on branches upside down all his life. Never comes off the branch. He stays on the branch all his life for about 15 years.
If you can imagine hanging on a tree for 15 years, that's really a strange thing.
Yeah, they eat that way, they sleep that way, they have babies that way,
They do,
and all
and
they do is hang.
the interesting thing I found is being a wild animal such as they are, they look so cuddly. You would love to be able to cradle one, but no, they are wild.
Do that. And then the best experience of all,
Was the New Year's Eve party that we
right here in this hotel, right there.
Exactly.
And I'm not used to having New Year's Eve in hot 85, 90 degree weather.
In the midst
sun,
of a jungle.
in the midst of a jungle.
Ex-
That to me was a whole new experience.
And so because it was so new and different, we had the contrast the next day of having to head for home.
Yep, go back to our normal habitat. Cold, rainy, winter weather.
And so now we find it's time to say goodbye.
Say goodbye, and hopefully we'll see you again in the near future.
We hope so.
So
Goodbye.
goodbye.